Coming up, it's a new episode of Don't Panic. We talk about our favorite podcasts. Microsoft's First Cut is the deepest. We also talk about Amazon's all-you-can-eat books, when free isn't really free, and does Airbnb's logo seem a little naughty to you? All that and more coming up on this episode of Don't Panic. Stay tuned. This is Don't Panic, episode number 56, recorded July 24th, 2014, on the death of Freemium, all you can read, and naughty logos. Hello, and welcome back to Don't Panic, the technology podcast on gadgets, the internet, and you, the show that is 100% free. Although if you want to hear Dan's voice, it's a 99-cent in-show purchase. I'm Sean Jennings, and I am joined by the Boardwalk and Park Place of Technology. That's a Monopoly reference for those of you who watched the show last week. Dan Miller and Colby Ravadu. Guys, how's it going?
Pretty good. Now that I know that I'm either the Boardwalk or Park Place. Beer.
Yeah, I'm drinking this delicious beer, so I'm amazing. It's like the Omegang Summer Special. It's really good. It's like a really hoppy summer beer. But
I'm drinking a Rolling Rock.
Rolling Rock, yes.
I pussied out. I went with the Snapple half and half. Some of us have to work in the morning.
The half and half on top of it all.
Yeah, it's not even real Snapple.
Watered down Snapple, yeah.
So knock off Arnold Palmer, delicious. How's it feel to be back, guys? We missed you last week.
I like it. I'm glad. I have so much stuff to talk about. So much has happened.
So much has happened.
Yeah.
But I can only think of one or two things that have all happened in the last week, so.
Destiny.
But I'm sure Sean will remind us of all the other things.
We've got a great list of stories. I want to quickly mention, to thank the guest host who joined us last week. If you didn't see it, it was our first ever guest viewer Q&A show. We had some really great questions. I hope some good answers. You should check that out. Our website, don'tpanic.io, has that and all our episodes. And I want to tell everybody, watch us live Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at don'tpanic.io. And tonight, live for the show, we're following hashtag don'tpanicshow. You can tweet at us, and I may ignore it or talk about it on the show. It's at my discretion. So, but we recommend you hang out and chat with us. Give us your feedback live. We appreciate it. Don'tpanic.io. Hashtag don'tpanicshow. Hashtag. Where do you guys want to start?
I have a question for you, Sean, before we
Daniel.
Get into it.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
We're talking about podcasts as a medium. Briefly, before we started, what podcast do you listen to? I'm just curious, and maybe the rest of the world is too. Because I kind of feel like I know what podcast I listen to, obviously, and I kind of, like, Colby's and my interests are somewhat aligned, but I'd be interested in hearing how his answer has changed since the last time I asked. But you are a mystery.
Let's go around the horn. My podcast tastes are always changing. I'm always dropping ones and picking new ones. At the moment, my big one is The Morning Stream. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's two guys, and they do a show every single morning. It's kind of like morning radio a little bit, but it's fun, and they bring on guests, and they talk about news stories and entertainment stories, and it's kind of just a fun, goofy show, The Morning Stream. I recommend that highly on the Frog Pants Podcast Network. Windows Weekly is another big one. I think Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley are excellent podcast hosts, and I love to listen to them on that. And my other there are a couple other ones I listen to occasionally. I want to give a shout out to the fellow who actually started and runs this next podcast, actually watches our show.
What?
Believe it or not, we have some synergy.
Oh, man.
His name
That's like the Weird Al song that came out today.
His name is Bruce Otter. His show is called Otter King's Media Montage, and the show is, I wouldn't even know how to begin to describe it, but it's sort of a pop culture amalgam show where they talk a lot about comic books and movies and pop culture, and it's a really great...
Otter King's Media Montage doesn't tell you everything you need to know?
You would think, but it's actually one of probably the smartest pop culture podcasts I've ever listened to.
I see an episode on here entitled Tank Girl the Movie.
Yeah.
Which I have seen that movie. I watched it. And so did guest alumnus TJ from about a year ago. In fact, he made me watch it, and I resent him for it a little bit. If you ever want to like really piss your friends off, just do that. I'm just kidding. TJ and I are still friends.
So that's your free ad, Bruce. I won't charge you for that. Because he listens to the show and he emails occasionally. So we thank you for that. So how about you guys? What are you listening to?
Do you want me to go first?
You can go first, well, because I just recently switched it all up, so I don't really remember.
All right. So I listen to I think I listen to the usual oh my god, you listen to NPR podcasts.
Was that your best Terry Gross voice?
Oh no, I wasn't really trying, but maybe I should next time. I listen to This American Life and the TED Radio Hour and Snap Judgment and Radio Lab when they do Radio Lab podcasts, which is frequently. And usually that's a day of podcasts. I listen to Monday morning and early afternoon. I listen to all my podcasts for the week, or all of those podcasts, and then throughout the week I'll jump around. I have some that I like to listen to sometimes. I'll listen to the ATP, the Accidental Tech Podcast.
Yep, that's a good
sometimes one. I don't generally.
Sometimes.
I go on and off. Sometimes when there's a lot of Apple stuff in the news, it's really interesting to listen to. But I don't always make. They also tend to run really long, and I don't always make it through the whole episode. I will admit.
But don't you also listen to your podcast while you're working? Which to me implies not paying attention. Which I know it doesn't imply that for you.
Yeah, I do. So when I listen to ATP while I'm working, my completion rate is much higher, I think, because I'm not paying attention to the podcast.
Okay.
I also listen to 99% Invisible. I forgot about that one.
Oh.
I sometimes I'll listen to Ruby Rogues. I cherry pick episodes of Ruby Rogues that sound interesting. I still haven't finished This Developer's Life. So I'm halfway through. So that's one that I pick up whenever I run out of other podcasts, and that's what I want to do. I also listen to this one which I picked a couple weeks ago, I think, called Unprofessional.
Yeah.
A bunch of these two tech people, and they have guests on that are usually tech people, but their rule is that they can't talk about work, so they talk about life stuff. It's weird and nice. It's nice to listen to. And it's they usually have these people on and they talk about their life stories, sort of not in a pretentious way, just I don't talk about you kind of way. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, though. I don't know. I'm gonna check out this Otter King's media montage.
Yeah, so smart show.
Aside from, I've got ATP. Scott Hanselman, who is also on This Developer's Life, also has a short form podcast called Hansel Minutes, which is really good, max 30 minutes. So maybe that would work out better for you, Colby. But it's about tech stuff. So if you look at episodes, Learning WebGL and Making 3D HTML Games with David Katuhi and Babylon.js, but it's only 33 minutes long. Exploring the Bionic Pancreas with Dr. Stephen John Russell. That one's 47 minutes long. Beyond that, This Week in Google is probably my favorite podcast. So Jeff Jarvis is a journalism professor in New York, and he's an interesting person, has some crazy ideas. Gina Trapani, fellow Marist alumnus, is a developer, and she wrote Lifehacker and founded it, and also wrote some other things. So those have been really good. I started listening to, thanks to this Overcast app, which we'll talk about later, some other time, this podcast called Sweet Maria's Coffee, which might be the single most pretentious hour of my life that I've ever experienced. And I don't think there's it wasn't the fault of the guy. So there's this guy, he sounds straight out of NPR. But he's clearly like in like Africa, just not in like a hotel room, just out in like a camp, and he's talking into the microphone about I talked to all these people about the history of coffee here, and here's like the rules back in colonial times, so only certain people could grow coffee, and they kept the price down. He's going on and on and on. And he's talking about that, and he's talking about different ways that you grow coffee and how you dry it, and I had almost no idea what he was talking about, but it was just bizarre enough to keep me interested. And like, sometimes you get dropped in conversations where people are talking about something you have no idea about, but it's the fact that you have no idea about it that makes it interesting. Anyways, that was kind of cool, but everything else I'll into has already been mentioned. Thank you. That was very informative.
Yeah, that was a great... We hope we gave all of the listeners other things to listen to outside of course, this show, and Change Mode, which is an equally good, if not better, podcast than most of the ones we listed. And I will quick tease. I'll tease it again at the end of the show. But tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, our Swift... I shouldn't say our. Your Swift show is going to be live on air. It's very exciting.
Rowing down.
It's on. And I'll be sitting back with my Ben & Jerry's just watching. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
I'll have Ben & Jerry's as well.
Oh.
And I'll do it while talking.
That's a bold prediction, Dan. I hope you can live up to that. Very cool. Well, why don't we jump into some tech news, as we are wont to do. Any particular story grabbing you guys you want to talk about first?
Oh man, there's so many good ones.
I'll give you options: Microsoft layoffs or Amazon all-you-can-eat books.
Ooh.
Because I think those are kind of the two big ones of the week, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's do Microsoft first.
Right. Well, big news. Satya Nadella teased this last week, but it finally came true this week. Microsoft's big shakeup. They announced that they are cutting 18,000 jobs over the next year. Roughly 12,500 of those are from the incoming Nokia, now that acquisition has gone through. And the vast majority of employees whose jobs will be eliminated will be notified over the next 6 months. A lot of these layoffs are in areas including Nokia's Android and Symbian OS areas, meaning Microsoft is essentially killing off the Nokia Android phones. Another interesting area that was cut, it was Xbox Entertainment, which was the division making original content for the Xbox, including the Halo television show, among other areas. Yeah, so I mean, I'll start off by saying I think it's an enormously sad time when anyone, never mind, 18,000 people lose their jobs. So regardless of whether we talk whether it's a good idea or a bad idea for the company, that doesn't reflect the fact that it still sucks for 18,000 people for that to happen. What I will say is this is actually a comparatively small amount of layoffs compared to other, to put it in perspective, at different times, Google laying off 11,000, HP 13.5, but BlackBerry's laid off 61,000 since 2011.
That's numbers since 2011 for all those?
Yes. Oh, as a percentage of staff. I'm sorry. That's my apologies. So Google has laid off 11% of its staff, HP 13.5%, Microsoft now with 14%, and BlackBerry's laid off 61% of their staff.
Since 2011.
Since 2011. I had another stat here where it compared how big it was to other tech companies. Let me pull this up here. Unless that's the same graph I was just looking at. No, it was the same. So, this is it's a little high for the tech industry as of late, but it's certainly not unheard of.
Did Google... I don't remember that being the news for Google, though.
But again, it may not have happened all at once, would be my guess, right? This is in the span of now 3 years. So...
All right.
And not noted is the fact that Nokia has let go of more than 50,000 people since Stephen Elop took over in 2010.
Oof.
Which doesn't include what's just happened here. So
That's crazy.
I mean, I'm going to volunteer to start the discussion on this.
Go for it.
And say, as much as it sucks, this was unequivocally the right thing to do. And I believe Satya Nadella is doing a really great job leading Microsoft. And here's why. Like any good tech company, over time, it gets bloated, right? You start branching out into all these new areas. Some work, some don't, but you're slow to kill them off. They hang around. They suck up money. They suck up resources. Nobody knows who's in charge of what. This happens all the time to companies. This is not new, right? And Microsoft has been around longer than most, if you think about it. They're one of the oldest, at least of that size, especially when you talk about companies like Intel and HP making big cuts. Well, it's not BlackBerry. You know, they're all these legacy tech companies. But I think what makes this a smart decision is not that he's just randomly slicing 18,000 jobs. It's where he's doing it, right? Everyone thought, I can't believe, Microsoft is buying a company in Nokia that makes Android phones. You know, that's crazy. Why would Microsoft want that? Well, smartly he cut that. Or another thing is, why does Microsoft need to make custom content shows for Xbox? Is it really going to sell more Xboxes? If you think about it, well, that's the company, right? Remember they announced the Halo TV show they were going to do, and there was a couple of other pilots for shows.
Oh, but I assume those are just partnerships, or it was like Xbox Live exclusive content.
Nope, they were being developed in-house in their own entertainment division, which is an enormous suck of money. You know, it's one thing if Amazon wants to do it, or especially if a Netflix wants to do it, because that's all they do, but does it really make sense for Microsoft, who makes the bulk of their money on enterprise software, to be making television shows?
Yes, but on the other hand, it's often a virtue to try new things, and you have to try. You know, like, what if Google never tried to make a self-driving car? If they're like, well, fuck that. That's too much work. It's just going to be a money suck.
Technically, Dan, that hasn't made them any money, and it hasn't become anything yet.
But would you say that it was a bad idea now, looking back on it, from what we know now?
If I were a Google investor, I might say it was a bad idea, because they're not seeing
But what if it works?
But what if it doesn't?
What if Google makes the self-driving car? How much money is that worth?
And what if it never becomes anything and they just blew a whole bunch of money?
That's the nature of the business. You're making bets.
Right, but I see how Google... Actually, I really don't see how Google makes money on self-driving cars. But let's just say Google makes money on self-driving cars. I don't see the parallel to Microsoft making money on television shows and movies that they are financing and producing, especially considering self-driving cars is kind of a broader technology space, right? You know, it's patents and it's intellectual property and it's algorithms and it's a lot of things. A TV show is either popular or it's not, right? It is what it is. There's no way to break that apart and actually salvage it for money, you know? So even if Google doesn't make a self-driving car, they could power that technology. They could sell it to someone else. If the Halo TV series doesn't work, they're just out that money, period, right? And I think that's the difference. Entertainment is so fickle.
I'm speaking to like the innovator's dilemma, like not becoming an IBM. Mm-hmm. Like IBM became what it is now because I'm sure in the minutia of things it did try other stuff, but it didn't fundamentally try anything different. It just slowly became a business consulting company.
I have a brief aside. Can you spell minutia?
Ouch.
Out of order, Colby. I'm going to try anyway. Minutie? I don't know how to spell it.
It's that was close. It's TIAE.
TIAE.
That's closer than I would have gotten. So
there you go.
Props there. Putting that college degree to use.
I wrote an address the other day. It was a weird day. I haven't written an address in a long time.
People forget.
Or written anything on a piece of paper for that matter. Okay, so yeah. I don't think you're Microsoft and you can stop trying these crazy things that are completely outside of your business, because Your core business is not always going to be there.
True, but I guess maybe the entertainment is too specific of an example, but is Microsoft ever going to make the bulk of their money on movies and television productions? That seems so far out of their wheelhouse. When you start talking about...
Well, they had a cable network at one point, right? They had
MSNBC.
MSNBC, yeah. Actually, wasn't that in a trivia challenge where I probably learned about that?
Probably.
Combined
names. Yeah, I mean, they were part owner in that for a very long time, but they didn't run it. They were merely an investor.
Sure.
But I guess...
I think the trick is you have to know when to cut it off. And I think Google's been getting better and better at this. And it's something, that worries me a lot about a lot of companies is that, I don't know.
I kind of...
Innovator's dilemma.
I look at this, of course, unsurprisingly, from Satya Nadella's shoes looking at investors, right? Their stock price has been flat forever. It is the most boring stock on earth. It never goes up, it never goes down. It just stays the same. So if I'm sitting in the CEO shoes, I say I have to do something to get investors excited. How do you do that? Either make more money or save money or something like that, right? And how do you do that? Eliminate bloat. So you look at the list and you say, what don't we need here at Microsoft? The division that makes TV and movies? We don't need that. Android phones? Why would we make those? Do I understand the long-term prospect? Sure. I don't think, Google is absolutely in a place to be making those bets. Microsoft is not the company to be placing those bets, at least not today.
Sure, but they're going to have to start placing them again soon.
Well, you're right, but I think these cuts put them in that place, right? So now they can take the money they just freed up and invest them in Azure and invest them in universal apps and invest them in areas that are going to show them promise down the road.
Yeah.
Windows Phone, which they're horribly stagnant in.
Except in Europe, right?
Yeah, around the world, it's very. You're absolutely right, but you won't make a bulk of your money off that. At least not these days.
You will if you get it into China.
That is true. That is true. But that's a whole other debate for another day. That goes far beyond this. But it sucks. I mean, it sucks that they're cutting jobs, but I think it was done in the right areas smartly. They didn't just cut little pieces here and there, and they didn't cut off anything particularly important, I don't think, anyway. But I don't know if you guys disagree or...
I don't think I disagree. It is, interesting to see a tech company not doing we'll do this too, and this, and this, and, not... Or cutting some, dropping some things versus the opposite, which has been the trend for the last 6 months or a year, where I don't know, everyone's getting all up in each other's stuff that.
Yeah, well, and
which feels bad
many times. Yeah, it does feel bad, but
then. Maybe I'll ask you this then. If Microsoft has decided that Xbox Studios is a bad investment, what does that say about Xbox as a whole?
Well, I think it speaks to what Xbox is not. Xbox is a content delivery system, a medium perhaps. Just because Microsoft isn't the one producing the content does not mean that their medium is not valuable.
It's my understanding that Xbox is profitable.
Yes, but not as profitable as other. But see, that's I don't think anyone says to shut down Xbox. Really, the theory is to spin them off into a separate company, so Microsoft doesn't have to feed resources into them, and they do it as a stock split. So every investor of Microsoft stock gets one stock in Xbox Incorporated, and let it run as its own company, so it's not on Microsoft's balance sheets. That's kind of the leading theory as to what to do with Xbox.
I guess I don't know enough about anything to understand why that's a good idea.
It's just...
This would be like Google's... I don't know.
When you get...
Google saying, well, Android isn't really making us a lot of money. it's pretty successful, but like, you know, search is really our thing. So we're just going to spin that off into a separate company, and we don't have to put resources into it.
Well, it's not uncommon. It's just the idea that Microsoft is in so many areas and their balance sheet is so complicated that if they spin it off into its own company, they still are the majority shareholders. They still make the money from it. But they can raise money through stock. Not necessarily raise money, but their stock becomes more valuable because it's paired with the Xbox stock. And if anything happens to Xbox or whatever, it's no longer on their balance sheet. So investors can say, oh, why does Microsoft own Xbox? That's an entertainment device. Has nothing to do with business. You know, then they can say they don't own it anymore. I know, it's really complicated, and it's annoying.
I guess in a way it does make, like, it probably gives it, like, some investors some incentive over what am I trying to say? Investing in Microsoft, the large conglomerate that Microsoft is of many things, like, is probably a little more daunting than investing in Xbox, which is one thing of that thing. Like, it's simpler, it's easier to digest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's much easier to reason about the success of Xbox on its own than it is to reason about the success of Microsoft, in which one small part is Xbox.
You know, it's interesting. Most people, you know, you don't think about it, but Microsoft within itself has 16 separate billion-dollar businesses. Just within the company themselves, which you could all spin off into their own company. That's why people have been saying for years, you should break Microsoft up. We're not getting our value for our stock, having all of these billion-dollar separate businesses under one header. So...
Okay. Yeah, I understand
But this isn't a stock show either, so...
I understand. I agree that splitting it makes it easier to decide which you want to invest in and which you don't. That's a fair argument.
Yeah. I think it makes, I don't know, like what I said before. Never mind. I already said what I said.
Money, am I right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, invest in the sexy company that is Microsoft. They make the Xbox. So why don't we move on and talk about another company that's having content issues, and that would be Amazon. You may know them as the website that will sell you books online, but they also do more than that. They announced this week what they're calling Kindle Unlimited. That's right, Kindle without limits. It's a $9.99 a month subscription reading service which I hate. I'm just going to say I hate when people say it's the Netflix of blank, right? You know, it's the Netflix of books or the...
That's what this entire article is. That's what they talk about.
But it's really irritating. But we can't do. I'm not going to do any better. So it's the Netflix of books. It's an all-you-can-eat book subscription service that they claim has more than 600,000 books and quote thousands of audiobook titles available to Kindle Unlimited subscribers. However, what is interesting of this service is they have deals with virtually none of the 5 major publishers, so most of the books on there are from smaller or independent publishers. The thousands of audiobooks they have are not nearly the sheer selection they have on the company they own, Audible, that they have there. It's just a small portion of that.
It doesn't...
So what? they have audiobooks, but it's like it's less than like 1% of the books on the service have the audiobooks included.
That's silly.
They do, however, give you a 30-day free trial of Audible, something like that. But that's all you get. And it's interesting to note that this is not included in Amazon Prime, like most of the other services they've announced, including Amazon Music, Amazon Kindle Lending Library, and Amazon Instant Streaming. This is a separate fee at $9.99 a month. So let's ask you guys, how are you feeling about Kindle Unlimited?
So I looked at every book in my wish list, all 50 or so of them, and absolutely none of them were in this Kindle Unlimited thing. The audiobooks I was a little more excited about, but I didn't really look into it. And I don't drive anymore, so the need for like a 40-hour experience isn't as pressing. Although if you're driving any distance, especially an hour or more every day, audiobooks are amazing.
I loved my Audible subscription when I drove a lot.
Yeah. And the great thing is, if you're not even driving that much, if you just do like weekend things, you can buy one Audible book and it'll last you for like a couple months, which is great. If you can stand to not finish it when you're not in the car, which I have had that problem. That was actually how I read The Name of the Wind the first time, was on audiobook. And I got back, I drove from Boston to Connecticut, and then I remember lying on the couch, holding the phone up and just listening to the rest of it, like hours. It's like, I don't have the book, I don't want to go get it, I just want to fish it now. But anyways, this is not an Audible ad. The other thing I noticed is that, yes, all the books they have are either really small or just so obscenely popular that you will have already read them. And probably owned them. Like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Yes, I do love those two series. But I already own them physically. And I rarely buy books that I own physically in Kindle, whereas I'm much more liable to do the other way around. If I buy it on Kindle and I really like it, I'll buy the physical copy. But anyways, I wish it was more awesome. I feel like Oyster has a better selection, which I picked a while back.
They do. They have deals with 2 of the 5 major publishers.
Yeah, and so in a couple months, I went through all the books I wanted to read, but it was a really good value. Like, I came out ahead of what I would have spent on Kindle.
That's cool. Personally, I have 2 things. One, I read slow, and I think I read slower than I spend $10 a month on books. So it's probably not worth it for that. And also, I just read the books that Dan tells me to read. So
honestly, that's a good strategy.
If all of the books he wants to read aren't in this, then the books I will read in the future are also not in this. So what's the point?
Could have said it better myself.
Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the selection's weak. The big problem I have is with these all-you-can-eat subscription services, where you have to figure out that point of value, right? If I'm not that hungry, I'm not going to go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, right? Because I'm only going to get one plate, and I don't feel I'm going to get value. This article on The Verge has an interesting point. The average person in 2013 spent 2.8 hours a day watching TV.
Yeah.
2.8 hours a day watching TV. To me, that validates me paying for Netflix, right? At, what is it now, $9.99 a month. I get unlimited streaming, but if I'm watching 3 hours a day, like, that's really good value. However, according to this, the average American spends about 6 minutes reading every day. How do you make up $10 of value at that? Now, of course, that's average and doesn't reflect everybody.
I tried to find whatever source they were using for this, which they did not specify, and I couldn't come up with... Every other thing I found was higher than that. Because if you think about it, people read all the freaking time. Like, does reading the newspaper count? Does reading The Verge count?
You're right, but even if that's true, that's not necessarily what this is about, right? This is about books, which is a totally different beast. I mean, I enjoy reading. I get through maybe a book a month, maybe 2 books a month. I even at the price of what ebooks are these days, I mean, most of the books I'm buying are $9.99. So if they had the selection, even if I got it and read 1 book a month, I'm breaking even. So anything on top of that's gravy. I get that.
Yep.
It's just, and then you throw in, if they had a better, it's selection. I really think it's selection. And for my pick this week, I'm reviewing Amazon Prime Music. And unsurprisingly, there's a similar problem. If the content isn't there, it's just not worth it. If this were part of Amazon Prime, I'd say, okay, that's great. And they kind of have that with the Prime Lending Library, except you only get 1 book a month. It's not unlimited.
Yep. I did notice, though, that they have the Lonely Planet ebooks, which are not page for page for the full Lonely Planet books, but I noticed at least a couple of those were in the Kindle Unlimited, which is really awesome if you just find yourself saying, oh, holy crap, I'm going to, like, the UK, let me get the Lonely Planet book for every country. Well, that'd be like $50, but here it'll only be $10. So that was cool.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I already bought all the ones I need.
Yeah, and I think you're going to get a good chunk of your value out of really cool independent things like guides and user manuals and trainings and
all the Lonely Planet books are on Kindle Unlimited.
Which
is great. Actually, I might just get it just to read them all.
That's what I'm saying. I think that could be an interesting way to position this. But it's a tough sell. I think Amazon, until they have deals, and who knows when that's going to happen, considering how badly the publishers hate Amazon. Without the deals, they're kind of dead in the water.
Yeah, they burn those bridges.
Yes, indeed. So I don't want to jump ahead, but there's one article I do really want to talk about.
Well, we should talk about it.
Because this article basically made me stand up and cheer when this was announced.
Okay. I'm really excited to know what it is.
The European Commission has laid out a series of guidelines, and Google has agreed to already be part of those guidelines, and saying that if an app has in-app purchases, it cannot be listed as free. Woo! We did it! We did it!
That was all us.
We did. Europe did it.
I was about to say, I don't know about that, but this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. We've talked endlessly on the show about how in-app purchases have completely fucked with the app marketplace and how apps are written and how they work and how they're purchased. And
Folius can't even listen to this. He's so pissed off.
He stormed off.
Left the room.
For you audio listeners, he threw up both middle fingers and just stormed right out.
Tossed his beer can over his shoulder and
it just my beer was there. Yeah.
Yes.
Figured Chuck didn't interrupt his monologue. But
no, it's such good. Colby, interrupt me all you want. I'm so excited. I think it's a really good thing because it really. Now, at this point, when I'm looking at free apps, if it says, and Apple is decent about this, at least in the App Store, underneath the free button, it says in-app purchases. The first thing I do, if it looks like a good app, is I look to see what the in-app purchases is, because usually that'll give you a clue. If it says 25 coins, 50 coins, 100 coins, 1,000 coins, immediately, I'm not interested, right? But if it's something like Overcast, which Dan mentioned, where it's unlock everything $4.99, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If it's a functionality, whatever. But I just think, I don't know, actually. I think it's good, and I'm excited, and I think it's good for the consumers. I have no idea what it will do to Google's App Store, because Google makes what did we say? It was like 90% of their revenue is through in-app purchases, and the rest is through regular app purchases. So what does it mean that now all of these apps that used to say free no longer say free on them?
Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it means people will start paying for apps on Android.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Do you think that'll actually happen?
No.
I know I've observed a phenomenon across both platforms where there is people who do not buy apps no matter what. They just what do you mean? I'm going to pay 99 cents for this thing? Why would I do that when I could pay for, I could pay nothing, like Instagram or, I don't know. And that makes me sad. I'd also like to point out, don't forget that this is the same European Union who told us that we have the right to be forgotten. So don't get too excited.
Yeah. and I think that's fair. But just I think it's just really good news that it's bait and switch to me. It's false advertising in a sense, especially games. Games are especially bad. When they say it's free and you go in thinking it's free, and you know what? It's not free. No matter, even if they say, well, you can play without buying, but they make it stupid difficult, and it's just irritating. And do they make a lot of money? Sure, but I don't know. There's just something. I don't even care for this whole, children click and spend money on their parents' credit card. We have to protect the children. I don't even care or buy that, honestly.
Think of the children, Sean.
Think of the children, I know. But maybe the parents shouldn't be letting them play with devices unsupervised. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're not a good parent. I don't know. But But it's just something about the core psychology and philosophy of it, just that they're not free. Don't say they're free. It's bait. You know, it's like when you go to a gas station and you pay with your credit card, and all of a sudden the price is 10 cents higher than what it was on the sign. It's things like that. That's what I'm saying. That really pisses me off, and I'm glad somebody finally said in-app purchases mean the game is not free. Right? To me, that makes sense. I guess it took the European Commission to make it a law.
I agree. You know what? I'm glad, because now I won't have to download apps to realize that I don't want it. I'll just realize I don't want it and not download it in the first place.
Colby, do you pay for apps on Android?
I have paid for apps on Android. If there is an app that is like mildly useful and not terrible, and it has banner ads, I will pay the in-app purchase to get rid of the fucking banner ads.
Oh, yeah.
Because the banner ads are really bad. Or they're really annoying, and they usually make things slow and crappy. So,
and that's it. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that does not happen often. I did that for like the bus transit app that I use, and that's pretty much it. I other than that, I guess I bought Pocket Casts, but I don't think that was an in-app purchase. I think that was just like I paid to download it.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's what I meant.
But
right.
I mean, considering Apple won't let you do app trials and things like that, they make you buy it if you want to own it. I actually am a big fan of features as in-app purchases, right? I mean, as long as they don't give you a hobbled version, Overcast is a good example, but to give you there's a weather radar app I use. And they say, if you want to remove ads, it's 99 cents. If you want National Weather Service alerts, it's 99 cents. If you want hurricane alerts, it's 99 cents. Well, I don't need hurricane alerts, but I do want to remove ads, right? They're giving me the option to choose my features based on money. They're getting paid, but it's not bait and switch, because the app works fine if I don't buy any of them. To me, that is a really smart workaround of the App Store in the system that doesn't allow you to try apps. So I actually really support things like that. It's just this games BS of coins and bucks and whatever.
You're right. I mean, I don't think there are many I'm sure there are, but I haven't come across many not game apps that seem like the way they're using in-app purchases is abusive. It's more like, get rid of these ads for a couple bucks, and I get it.
And
I don't know.
It's a much smarter model than having two apps, a free version and a paid version, right? You're getting all your reviews on one app. You're getting all your downloads through one app. You're not confusing people by having two. Instead, you're just adding and removing features. It's brilliant, I think.
Remember the days of light apps?
Oh my God, that was so annoying. You're totally right. So that's why I like the in-app purchase thing. I'd like to see more apps doing that for features, not for BS.
No. So I feel like it does muck up the whole top app lists thing. If you think about it, what is Overcast? It'll be on the free. If we're a top app, which I can't imagine a podcast app will be a top app in the App Store. Is it on the free list? And does that make sense?
Well,
are the app lists just dumb? I know. I correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like there's some criticism of the app lists in the App Store, anyways. But
I haven't heard anything recently. I know at one point there was you could hire just where you could buy followers on Twitter and things like that. You could buy to get your app up the rankings by having fake downloads and things like that. I haven't heard anything of that recently, but to me, I actually don't mind Overcast being in the free list, because it is a free app, right? I mean, it works perfectly fine free. I wouldn't call it stripped or hobbled or anything like that. It's a good podcast app when it's free. You just don't get all the features, but that's my opinion. But I think that's a fair point. We have time for one quick story.
Quick story.
I know, and please, if you don't want to talk about this, it's perfectly all right. Facebook saves.
Yeah, if you want to get me angry, we can talk about the Airbnb logo too. But if you don't want to get me angry,
I want to get. I had my angry moment, Dan. Now it's your turn. So go ahead. Let's talk. I'll just briefly say Facebook announced that it's going to let you save places, music, links, and other things through the apps and on the web to a kind of central repository, which will sync across all your devices. That's rolling out over the next week on Android, iOS, and the web. I think it's awesome because I can't tell you how many times I've been on my phone, saw something, and wanted to save it for later, and was like, but there's no way to... that's what I use favorites on Twitter for, right? I save tweets I want to look at later. This is actually a super awesome feature, so I approve. But look for that coming. But yeah, so let's talk about Airbnb. What's the story, Dan?
First of all, it was kind of stupid. I think it was kind of silly on Airbnb's part to make such a big deal about this because they kind of set themselves up for backlash in a way. But all these people were like, oh my gosh, this logo looks like the combination of every possible private part. Every genitalia. Yeah, but it looks like everything else. It looks like the letter A. It looks like a heart. It looks like the infinity sign. It looks like, I don't know.
A bent paperclip?
A bent paperclip. It looks like it's so nondescript. And I don't know. People are haters.
Oh, interesting. So are you're pro the logo and con haters?
Yeah.
Dan is con haters.
I am con haters.
I thought you were going to be pro haters and con the logo. Being a hater yourself, I guess.
No.
I thought that's what you would be angry about. I didn't realize there was backlash.
Oh, yeah, people... Well, so one thing was that people were like, oh, it's so... How did no one see this? And it's like, okay, people get your minds out of the gutter. The other thing that people are upset about that made me even more upset was they were like, oh, Airbnb is so full of shit when they talk about like, oh, we're like connecting people and we're like making these new experiences. Like Airbnb was talking about it in very lofty terms. They weren't really talking about the logo. They were clearly trying to talk about their brand, using the redesign as a way to like re-energize their brand's message. But in my experience in Airbnb, like I have connected with people I never would have otherwise talked to in ways I never could have imagined, and it's been awesome. And so all these people that say like, oh, that's just such a crock of shit. Why don't they just tell us, oh, you rent rooms and you pay us money and that's it? Why don't they just be honest? It's like, because it is more than that. It is more than that. And just renting the room, you could do that anywhere. You could do it for cheaper. Sometimes Airbnb is not always the best choice. Sometimes, not always the cheapest choice. Sometimes it is the cheapest. Oftentimes it's not. You're doing it for something more than that, and it is the human element. It's being connected with the person who owns your room instead of that mystery person who you figure will probably come into your room while you're out for the day, but you don't want them to really know who they are, and you don't care about them. You just want them to make your bed. That's what I rebel against. That not wanting that wanting to actually know the person who goes into your room, that wanting that is stupid, I reject. I think it's great. And I approve of their re-energization.
Well, and to back you up, and I think you're right, Dan, and I think people do, blow up these things for no good reasons, but, if people aren't comfortable with Airbnb talking very about belonging and being a part of the, every brand you've ever heard of has a document that talks about how great it is and people love it, and it's about a sense of happiness and belonging and friendship, and it just never gets published, right? And you laugh. I've seen some of these documents. They're friggin' ridiculous. Nobody loves Tide detergent like people think, like Tide thinks people do. So
yeah, but Airbnb is that. Like, it is about people.
Is it though? It's a business.
It is.
It's about making money, Dan. That's all businesses are.
No, I reject that. Most businesses, not even most, just the most visible businesses are all about making money. Like Google and Tide Detergent and Goldman Sachs are very amoral by their very existence. But it's true. They're literally only out to make money, and that is the only thing they can do.
I don't think. Okay, I'm not saying companies are only out to make money. I'm saying money is the number one priority. There can be other priorities, but none come before making money. Because if you don't make money, you're not a business. You're just people doing things for fun.
Sure.
I don't know.
But that's not the whole identity of a company. There's so much more than that.
That's true.
Like your favorite little coffee shop, independent coffee shop, that's a business. Is its only goal to make money?
Its primary goal should be to make money. Or else it will go out of business and not exist anymore.
Well, I think making money is a necessity to being a business, but a small business's primary goal could be completely different. If it was their goal to make money, their aims would be far higher than just a coffee shop. They would want to be Starbucks, but these people don't want to do that because their goal isn't to make money.
Well, but to make money doesn't mean make a lot of money. It means make enough money, right? You want that local coffee shop to be good at making money because, again, if they don't, they're going to go out of business. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. I also wanted to talk about a thing that really bugs me, and that's I think Airbnb, along with this new logo announcement, showed off a redesign of their webpage. I think it looks good. I also think it looks like everything else on the internet these days, which is really bumming me out. Like, their logo is so flat and predictable outside of the potentially profane logo. Like, the font is boring. The identity's boring. The website is predictable. Like,
the HTML5 video in the back is kind of cool.
I have not seen that.
One of them I recognize. One of them is like Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And I was watching and I was like, whoa, I know where that is. I know where that grill is. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway,
I agree with that, Sean.
I don't know. It's not bad.
I do think that it's an improvement upon what they had before. I was actually using the website right before this to do some heavy Airbnb-ing. And it was like the favorites list was pretty weird. And looking back on it, the logo was kind of stupid. Like, what were the clouds for? It looked exactly like the old Twitter logo.
Oh, you're right. But I don't know if this is a move in the right... For a company that's all about belonging and connections, why do you make a very sterile, predictable website? There's nothing warm... To me, there's nothing warm and inviting about their straight lines and their flat font and their... You know, I don't know. It just seems like 1,000 other startups. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe it's like... One thing you do get with the flat stuff is the pictures are more important, right? Actually, I just went to one of the listing pages for the first time, and like it's huge. Like it's this giant picture of the place. Like that's really cool. I don't know.
You guys are the web designers.
I would argue that
designer is a strong term.
Dan is correct.
I put it this way. I trust those to-do list apps we're going to see tomorrow on Change Mode are going to be beautiful. Gorgeous. Yeah, uh-huh.
Mine is... I prefer the term minimalist.
Minimalist. That is a style. So
yeah,
you're not wrong.
Very Johnny Ive in its approach to functionality.
Why don't we leave it at that note? And we got to move on to picks in the interest of time. Good discussion. I want to remind everyone out there listening live, #Don'tPanicShow is a way to reach us if you had thoughts on anything we talked about or our picks, which are coming up right now. I'm going to jump in and go first. It's going to be quick. This is a review pick. We've talked about this on the show before, and it is Amazon Prime Music. It is the free music service Amazon announced, I don't know, what, a month ago, 2 months ago, that you get with your Amazon Prime yearly subscription. And the promise is I don't really know, Spotify competitor, you know, in that sort of music streaming space, an all-you-can-eat music streaming service available on their website and through various apps. So I have my iPad here, so it's just like every other music service you've ever used, where they have all of your albums. Now, to me, one of the big bonuses is when I buy music, I buy it through Amazon. I like their MP3 store. So what's good is it kind of merges that with the Prime stuff in one app, which is nice. Going through here's Journey's Greatest Hits, for example. Here it is on Prime, and you see next to all of them, you get the little blue check mark saying, hey, it's good, it's Prime. You just select... We won't do Don't Stop Believing, that's a little over. We'll do Faithful, which is a great song. And then just like that, it starts playing. We won't play too much, because I don't want to get sued by the Journey people, but...
Too late!
You can add the album or individual songs to your library, and you keep it with your music. There's also another cool feature called Prime Playlists. These are supposedly curated by experts. I don't know what that means. But they're themed playlists that are predetermined and so there's 50 great epic classic rock songs, and 50 great 80s rock songs, and I Heart Pop Hits, and relaxing indie rock, and singing in the shower. There's a whole bunch of them. Other than that, it's just like any other music service you've ever used. It is iOS, Android, and on the web. My review of actually using it for a month now, it's good. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. The app, it's good. The apps work well. They get the job done. The stream is nice. I think the app is nice. I've been using the app for my purchased music before. It's nice to have that all in one place. It's easy to add music to your library. I find the playlists to be pretty decent. Predictable, but decent, and I think those will get better over time. However, the music selection isn't good. I'm not going to say it sucks, because that's not fair. They do have music, but I would say as I'm going through and like, oh yeah, I like that band, let's see if they have their music, or oh, look at this similar song, I want to include that, I'm probably hitting a quarter of the songs I want are on Prime. I mean, it's staggering how much is missing. I mean, again, it's not barren. It's not blank. There is music. But I can't really recommend it for someone who isn't willing to be flexible and get over it if they don't have their song. You know, the selection is just not there. It's the same thing with Kindle Unlimited. If you have Prime, try it. See if your music is there. And if it is, I think it's a pretty good service, and I think it's compelling, and you pay for it through Prime anyway, so you might as well use it. But until they get more music on there, it's like, it just feels, like it's missing a piece, which is disappointing. So the technology's good, the promise is good. Without the right songs, it's a swing and a miss. So that's my review of Amazon Prime Music. I still think people should buy Prime. I still think at $99 a year, Prime is an excellent deal. And you're willing to get over not having all the songs because you get so much other value. But that's my thoughts on Prime Music.
Cool.
I did it justice.
Next?
What was that?
Can I go next?
Sure, why not?
Thanks.
No.
No.
So my pick this week is this website called roadtrippers.com. And so I was on vacation last week. My girlfriend was visiting, and we kind of did a mini road trip down, like kind of south of San Francisco Bay to like Santa Cruz and Monterey. Did some beach stuff and things, but like to plan out our trip, we use this website called Road Trippers, which is basically like, it's kind of like Google Maps. Like there's a giant map, and you put in where you're going or where you're starting and where you're going. But then their gimmick is that like they help you pick things to stop and see along the way. So they'll show you like all kinds of like sites and restaurants and parks and nature-y things within a given specified radius of your route. So you pick your route, and then say you want to find a hotels to stay in. So you select the hotels category, and all these like pins pop up with hotels that you can pick. So it's kind of cool. It's like useful if you're planning a road trip. There's a bunch of rough edges. So in the middle of us figuring this out, they like updated their website and it got like a million times better. Like before it almost worked and it would like memory leak and crash your Chrome tab like every 15 minutes. So it's a lot better now. It still does some weird stuff. Like I get the tutorial thing every time I go to it, which is really annoying. But if you're planning a road trip, you should check it out. It's kind of neat.
Now I'm looking at this. This is really interesting, but I'm curious where they're pulling all of the data from. Because for example, I looked up Poughkeepsie and Mole Mole came up, and there are pictures and descriptions and the address and all kinds of stuff. Are they scraping Google or something?
I have no idea. Like, it seems to me like they have all these, like, you can write reviews of places on their website and like upload pictures on their website. I don't know if they're supplementing. I would imagine that they're like supplementing their database of places somehow, because it seems pretty good. We found a bunch of places to go and they were all legit. And one thing I did notice, they didn't have like tons of pictures of the place of many places. Mm-hmm. There would be like one or two. So, maybe that's, they kind of like seeded their database with a bunch of places from some third party or something. And,
yeah, it's pretty impressive for a new company. So yeah, this is neat. I like this. Roadtrippers.com. Neat. All right, Dan, why don't you take us home?
Yeah. So the last week, the Destiny beta finally came out. Colby was road tripping in Santa Cruz, so I had to play it by myself for like a day. But I actually had a lot of friends who ended up with this, so it worked out fine. I don't need you anymore, Colby. Just kidding. I do. So Destiny's this game for the PS4 and the PS3 and the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. It's the new game by the Halo folks, but it's not just a first-person shooter. It's billed as like a first-person shooter and an RPG game and like a multiplayer game and a single-player game and an MMO, like all combined. Now, I was very skeptical that this could ever work. So I got the beta, and it is awesome. There's a dog on the screen now, so totally sidetracked.
Was crying. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
That's all right. We forgive you, cute puppy dog. But anyways, so here's what it is. It's basically the Borderlands done really, really well with amazing multiplayer, which is what I now realize is all I really wanted from Borderlands beyond what it offered. Because Borderlands is a lot of fun for like a bit. Like, if you have like a rainy weekend and your friends are locked in a room, it was tons of fun. But it kind of grew old pretty quickly. The multiplayer in this game really is great. It reminds me of like Unreal Tournament, like the old school games where it's not like Call of Duty where you can take like 6 bullets to the chest and then you're fine. You get one shot and you're pretty much dead unless the guy like totally missed, or gal. Which endears it to my heart. You can also jump really high, which, for whatever reason, I'm really good with games where gravity is weird. It's really good. It's really polished. I'm looking forward to it coming out in September. Played with Colby for a little bit. It was tons of fun. I also appreciate, probably my number one feature, and I've seen a lot of people complain about this online, so I'm a little bit nervous, but my number one favorite feature is that voice chat is not enabled in multiplayer for everyone. So you can't hear 11-year-old Johnny screaming his head off, and you can't hear, asshole whoever swearing at everyone who gets killed. It just makes the experience so much better. But if you're playing with people you are friends with, you can hear them, which is great. That's
great. Cool. That's smart.
And Call of Duty is just such a like staring down like the armpit of humanity with these people in these games. It's just awful. This feels so much better, and I'm sure those people are there. They're on the other side. I just can't hear them. I can't see them.
Like,
it's great.
Like when we were playing that first multiplayer game, and I killed like one person and died 67 times. It was like, I'm sure there were people on our team like swearing at me for being dead weight, because I was dead weight. But like, I didn't know, and I didn't have to know. I was just doing my thing poorly, but I was doing it, and no one was bugging me, and like I could talk to you and Sal.
Yeah.
And it was fun, and I think so. I think there are two things that it has better. It has on Borderlands. One is a multiplayer. Maybe it's three things. The multiplayer, one, it's a fun shooter. Like Borderlands wasn't a
yeah, it's just better.
It didn't
it's
feel
no difference really, but it's just somehow better.
Right. It's the like Borderlands was like kind of like a Valve shooter. Like it was fun, but it was weird, and like I don't know. This has more of like it's almost like a cross between Halo and Call of Duty. Like you die faster than in Halo, but you also like it feels faster like Call of Duty. I don't know. It's fun. And also you don't have to like. The other thing that I like is the like amount of stuff you have to stop and pick up is toned down. Like all you did in Borderlands was pick things up off the ground. That was the whole game. Like you shot people and then picked stuff up off the ground. And that is there are still like select things to pick up, but one, you don't have to press a button to pick things up. You just walk over them. And two, there's not nearly as much stuff. So that's much more satisfying, and I enjoy it a lot more. It feels less like chores and more like living the dream.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very cool. Alrighty. Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's show. We hope all of you out there enjoyed it as much as we did. I do want to take this opportunity to tease tomorrow night, Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, a brand new episode of Change Mode, starring none other than Colby and Dan, who will be walking through their to-do list apps made in Swift. It's going to be fun. And I think you should join us. That show, and you can also get this show at coffeeandbeer.tv. There are all of the links to get this show in audio, video, download, subscribe, social media, links, all of that good stuff is available there. Check it out. And we appreciate you guys being part of the show. Thanks to Colby and Dan as well. Another great episode. We'll be back next Monday night with an all-new Don't Panic. It'll be fun for the whole family. You should definitely join us live at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at our website, don'tpanic.io. On behalf of the whole crew, we'll wish you all a good night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week on yet another episode of Don't Panic. This show is brewed fresh weekly by the Coffee and Beer Podcast Network. Get all our shows at our website, coffeeandbeer.tv.